Maran, Siman Kuf Samech, chapter 167. Mikom Uzman HaPtziah, the time and place of B'tziah, we're going to translate it as cutting the challah, but really B'tziah means ripping the challah, like Botzeah. Umihu HaBotzeah, and who is the one who does the cutting? Uvo Chaf Seifim, and there are 20 subcategories in the Chaf. So the last two chapters had two, or a few halachot in every one. This one has 20 of them.
Oh, wow.
Says Man, Botzea bepat b'makom shenefa hetev. You cut. Okay, when I say cut, really we didn't use knives. We're dealing with bread that you rip with your hand. So you tear from the place where it is the most well baked. When you cut hamotzi, you're not supposed to take from the first slice. You have to look for the part. You'll see that I do this. I always look for the part that is more well baked, and I rip off that piece, and then I slice.
More crusty? More crusty?
Yeah, more crusty. Yeah. Hagar, says the Rama, ubepat didan, in our bread. Who's our bread? What is our bread?
Community bread.
Like a Sephardic style.
Right, so Rama is saying, not the Sephardic style is maybe one kind of bread, but our bread, like loaves of bread, that's what I'm assuming. Yesh litzua b'tzad hapat, you should cut from the side of the bread. V'yachtoch ma'at mitzad ha'elyon v'atachton, you should cut a little bit from the top and the bottom. I don't actually know what that means. Let's see.
So the best baked
If
sides.
Shabbat will explain to us what Rama meant here. And we're looking for the more well-baked part of the bread. But the Rama is adding that our bread. So let me see here. Ubapad didan. And Mishnah Berurah says the Vilna Gaon is not sure why the Rama says our bread, because there are different kinds of bread. He's talking about the kind of bread, Baruch might have seen this before, where they take the bread and they stick it to the side of the oven.
Or the old-fashioned
The
way?
old-fashioned way. You know what I'm talking about?
No?
Looks like
You ever
a
seen
pita.
now Middle Eastern bread is baked? You take like that.
In the old ovens,
pizza,
yeah.
You smack it on the side, like on the wall, and then it bakes over there.
So it's like a big tortilla.
That's right.
The old oven, earthenware.
You might still be able to see it
oven-
in San Diego in some of the Arab bakeries here. It could be that you'll find such a thing.
Yeah, my mother.
I've seen where they have kind of like a dome, like a metal dome, and they just
On
kind of like
top,
slap it
on top of
the
it,
dome.
right? That's another kind of. That's
My mother-in-law had one. In fact, they would bake the matzah in a similar style.
Your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
In Israel, right?
Yeah. We'll see if I find a picture. It's interesting.
Well, I don't actually know what it means from the top and the side, but he's telling you that's where, when you're cutting a loaf of bread, you're cutting from that side. Now back to Maran. V'yachtoch prusat hab'tziah.
Is the word habitzir related to the word for egg? Beitzah.
What's that mean? No, beitzah with a hay. This means to split, like to rip the bread. The truth is that I don't have an expert translation here of Shulchan Aruch, but let me do this with you. V'yachtoch prusat hab'tziah. So you cut the place where, meaning you're supposed to cut the place where you're supposed to, this well-baked place. וצריך לחתוך מעט, שאם יאחוז בפרוסה יעלה שער כיכר עמו, שאם לא כן חשוב כפרוס. You have to cut a little bit.
Wow. Get rid of the screens.
I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed a little bit.
Okay.
Wow. It's like almost like chewing gum. Slap the gum.
Okay.
Is this
Essentially
when
what
you-
Maran is telling you is you should start cutting. Now this is really when I first came from yeshiva. I told my father, I would fight him to do it back when I was still 14 or 15. In my yeshiva in Baltimore, they didn't teach us about Kibbutz Amayim.
Ooh.
In Israel, our parents did, but in Baltimore, they did. No, you're right. What are you? You're a 14-year-old kid who knows everything. And really, Maran says like this, you have to do, and my father, my father is a humble guy, so, okay, he only makes problems, and then, I remember one Pesach, and I'm going to say my sins today, my chatay. One Pesach, we had a class with one of the big rabbis in Baltimore, and he was telling us how you don't understand, even the olive oil is chametz for Pesach, and the dates are chametz for Pesach, and the chametz, not that it's maybe it's chametz, chametz means it's forbidden to eat on Pesach. And his story was, he once went to a date factory, where they make dates. And they were having, they had two separate rooms, one where the dates were certified kosher for Pesach, and another one where they would flour the dates.
Flour the dates?
I think sometimes you'll see they like make rolls of dates with flour on them. You can buy those in Sprouts sometimes. People put them in their cereal or oatmeal or things like that.
Sugar them. Or
and he said, and what did I find? That from the air conditioner on one side of the warehouse to the other side, it was sucking in air in this room and spraying it out in the other room, and that means that all the dates in this room were now chametz. We shut down the operation and da-da-da.
Wow.
Oh boy.
So they told us, go home and make sure everything your parents have is certified kosher for Pesach. I remember that year. I was 14 years old. I came home. People say today, I'm the opposite today. It's everything is kosher for Pesach, but it's because of chet. The Kehillat says whenever you see somebody who has a problem, or they're fighting a problem, meaning you see somebody is always talking about one avera, don't do this avera, don't do that. It says you should know that in a previous lifestyle, that was his avera. So clearly, if kashrut and making kashrut easier is my thing, it's because previously I did an avera and that's good. Then I came home and my parents had this olive oil, pure olive oil. And you can't use it on Pesach. My mom put it in the side. I remember making a taram about it. That's how they taught us. They taught us we were brainless children. They didn't teach us really how to learn halakha, and they told us that it's okay for you to think that you're smarter than your parents. It's like my first time my parents are doing Pesach. No, but the first time I was doing Pesach as the mashgiach, and it's a chet. Huh? So that's why when people say Pesach kashrut, this topic is very dear to me. That people should be able to eat with each other for Pesach. Because I know what it's like to be on the other side of the coin. I know what it's like to be there. So my father for a long time was just quiet. Okay, he only wants to slice the bread a little. And then one day, it was probably in 11th grade. That's 11th grade was really when I began studying Sephardic halakha for myself. I didn't have any teachers. There were no, but I got my hands on some books, also some Yemenite books. And lo and behold, in the book of Chachmei Teman, it says black on white that in Yemen they did not have this minhag to cut the bread before they did Hamutzi. My father was telling me that's what he did his whole life. That's what his father did. That's what his grandfather did. But I somehow in yeshiva, again, they tell me that I know everything. It was a mistake. So today we don't do this. But this is what Maran is saying. Essentially, you're supposed to first make a hamutzi and then cut the bread. I'm using the word cut lightly because we said really means to tear the bread. But on the other hand, our chachamim want to make sure that you don't spend so much time between making the bracha and actually cutting the bread. So Maran is suggesting is that you should slice the bread, at least start the slice, and then hold it together. You ever seen people do that? They'll make a slice before hamutzi. The reason for that is this halakha Maran.
The slice I've seen is like
A partial
you can
slice.
barely you can barely
Right.
see.
You
It's
barely
like
make a
barely
scratch.
touch
That's
it.
like the people who do
The partial
Ma'amim
slice.
You can barely see the water they put on their hands. Again, it's the same people. They don't know halakha. They're just imitating what someone else does. Remember that article I shared with you from I'm So Nature about in the old world, people didn't learn for themselves. They just imitated what the person next to them was doing. But now in this world, what?
Still after 40 years, I'm doing that because that's what I saw.
That's what you said. Okay, no, right. This is the point. So Maran is saying you should do this, but you shouldn't separate the bread. Why? Sheim lo ken chashuv keparus. Because if you don't hold the bread together, then it's considered sliced bread already, and you're supposed to make hamutzi on HaShamayim. Don't worry, everyone's confessing today. They're saying today we're going all out Catholic today. And you should hold it connected to the bread and then start the bracha. And as soon as you finish the bracha, you should separate it. That way, when you're saying the blessing, the bread is still one piece. Okay, so this is one halakha. One halakha is about starting the slice. Okay. Now I'll tell you the truth. How do I get around this? because I don't do this. I told her, I mean, how here is not like Malan. So how do you do it? It's very easy. Don't do what everybody else does. I see what people do by Hamotzi. They also do this by Kiddush. I don't know who taught them this terrible thing. They do Hamotzi Lechem min haaretz, and what do? They start cutting the bread and slicing the bread this way and then that way and putting it in plates and dipping it in salt, and he hasn't eaten bread yet. You made the bracha, you eat bread right away. What do you have to slice for everybody yet? You eat, while you're eating, now start slicing the challah for everybody. Kiddush is the same thing. How are you waiting so long between B'let Gefen and drinking the wine? Oh, you don't want to drink from... So okay, in old school, the way they used to do it, everyone would just sip from the same glass and pass it around. So according to halakha, it's a problem. You're not allowed to share a cup with somebody in halakha. People don't know it's a halakha. Magan has a whole section of halachot, of things to do for safety of food. Magan talks about it's forbidden to touch money and then touch your mouth. Or it's forbidden to put money in your mouth. Or anything to do with... It's dangerous for a person.
Wow.
The Magan has a number of things. You're talking about a long time ago, before people...
Before Louis Pasteur,
where
people start figuring out what these bugs
we're aware
are.
of these things. Now, here, so they used to pass the wine. So they got the balabai to drink and hand it to his wife, and then they had it around to the whole house. There may be people that still remember doing that in their lifetime. I'm not a fan of this, because by the time it got to me, it's already... It's like, when you go to a Hasidic tish or something, and the Rebbe eats the salmon with his hands, and then he passes to Zev, and Zev passes to Anatol, and it goes all around the room until Jack has to eat it. And then it keeps going. You know what I'm talking about? In their hands, like this, they're fish and kugel and okay, there's a world like that. I can't. I used to see that, and I just like...
The honey cake.
My
you're
wife's
supposed to have
Rebbe,
20
right? The
hands.
honey cake. That's right. My wife's Rebbe is a very particular. He's very particular about this. He takes a fork and he touches the fish and eats it, and then you guys do whatever you want with the fish. I don't want to deal with it. So, but I was once by a Rebbe, and I came there for Chanukah, and I came to shake his hand. Hashem Yishmo. I don't want to say bad about it, Tzaddik, but his fingernails were full of chocolate cake. You ever seen like in between his fingers and like, oh, Shalom Aleichem. Don't touch me. It's a problem. I remember shaking his hand, and for the rest of the time, I'm sitting like this. My hand is in isolation now. Because he handed out the chocolate cake with his hands to everybody. We should know. Don't. Why 100 years ago we didn't sit on the floor and all eat from the same bowl? We did. I'm not making fun of anybody now. The Maseh, there's an argument of the Gemara between the Jews of Israel and the Jews of Babylon about how you're supposed to, when you share the bowl, the big bowl of rice.
Yeah.
How should you take? Should you take with your hands, or should you take with a wooden utensil? And some of the people, their opinion was you should use the wooden utensil because the wood gives flavor to the food. And the other one said no, that's ridiculous. We are giving from our hands the flavor to the food. That's an argument of the Gemara.
He's on a particular hand.
Okay, yeah, they're right. They have to be careful which hand and who eats first and who starts first. Okay, I got there for a reason. The next halakha is important. But the way you eat. V'lo yiftzap was on top of page 337. Top line, 5 words in. It's a halakha that I don't think people know. V'lo yiftzap prusa ktana mipnei shenira ketzar ayin. You cannot slice just a small slice of bread. Or maybe in today's terms you could translate that into just a few slices of challah. Because it seems like you're being stingy.
You up here?
Yeah, top of page 337. V'lo prusa yoter mikbeitza, and you cannot cut a piece of bread that is bigger than the size of an egg. Mipnei shenira keravtan, because he appears like a glutton, like one wants to eat a lot.
So they cut thin slices.
So this is very interesting. This whole halakha here, I must tell you, it has to be interpreted subjectively. I'll explain it to you. When you cut a lafa, it's very easy to cut small pieces. That's what I do in my house. And most of the time I make hamotzi, not on challah. But when you use challah, it's very, how are you going to cut? It's like when you go to wash in the kosher restaurants, they have that moldy bread by the sink for nitilat yadayim, little pieces. How do you cut bread that small? Yeah, it takes effort. Yeah, but the maaseh, from here you learn interesting halakha and yichod derech eretz, hara peretz. I don't know if I should. It's not proper. Whenever I go to, you go to an Israeli restaurant, so you can order your falafel or your shawarma either in a plate or in a lafa, like wrapped up like a burrito, or in a pita. And the most expensive is always the plate, and the least expensive is the pita. In Israel, by the way, you can order half pitas or half lafas. It's like on the go. You can just get a half.
Half full.
It doesn't exist, right? According to halakha, you're not supposed to hold the whole lafa and bite it. It looks like a lafta. It looks like an animal when you're holding more than an egg size of bread. Here in the Beit Knesset, you may remember the first few years, my wife's always fighting with me about cutting the challah. Where her family comes from, they have big chalot and they cut like big slices. Well, you know, imagine the loaf is like this. They cut a whole loaf. I always cut them in half. The reason for this halakha, I don't want to be handing out big pieces of bread because people they bite into this bread. And I don't want people to look like aftanim. There's a Jewish culture. I spoke about this last week. There's a Jewish culture in how we eat also, not just in Africa, also in Am Yisrael. And we have to know what that is. That is not to cut pieces of bread that are too big. You want to eat some bread? You'll notice, by the way, that really proper, if you go to the Middle Eastern world, they're not wrapping up their shawarma and their lafa. They rip off a piece of their lafa, and they either dip it into some hummus and put shawarma, and they eat it like that. They eat it in pieces, not holding a 6 foot sub sandwich, you know.
A lot of those big challahs that you see in those places, though, they're like cotton candy. There's so much air in them that
Right.
you tear off a piece, it's like a bite will end up being like.
Right, if you squish it, it'll be like that. But the truth is that it's a problem to cut bread like that. Maran is telling you, also it's a problem to cut too little bread. You just go to somebody's house to cut 2 pieces of challah. You're showing it feels like you're being stingy with your guests. Rama adds, Haga, Uve Shabbat, and on Shabbat, lo yachtoch bekikam, you should not cut from the bread ad achar habracha. Until after you make the blessing, you shouldn't make a slice in the bread.
So that's-
Kidei shiyu hakikarot shlemot, because on Shabbat you need 2 whole loaves of bread. Umikol makom, nonetheless, im shachach v'tchatach kmo bechol eno mazik. But if you did cut the bread like during the week, it's not about afternoons. And remember, according to Maran, you're not just starting the slice. According to Maran, you're slicing a slice of bread and then holding it back together with the bread.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Here he's saying if you did that on Shabbat, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, but really on Shabbat you shouldn't pre-slice the bread.
Maybe that's why they just put this little tiny, like, they pretend like they're cutting the bread. Maybe that's
It's sort of like you're marking the
Like
bread.
indentations.
But we'll talk. Maybe we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But let's see. The Rama says v'nira, and it appears that had delo yivtza yoter mikbetza. That which we said you shouldn't cut more than an egg size. Hainu davka bechol ve'ochel levado. That's on a weekday when you're eating alone. Aval b'Shabbat, on Shabbat, or she'ochel im harbe bnei adam, or it's a meal that you're eating with a lot of people. V'tzarich litem min ha'pursa lechol echad kazayit, and you have to give everybody an olive size of bread. Mutar livtzoa k'fi ma shetzarich lo. You can cut bread in whatever size you want to cut. Meaning, he's understanding Maran to say that you shouldn't be biting out of a loaf of bread. You shouldn't be biting out of a huge slice of bread. But if you're passing around bread, it could be whatever size that they need in order to fulfill their obligation of eating bread. Let's do the notes here in the bottom. So much commentary for one paragraph. You know, as time goes forward, every time I learn books of halakha, I struggle with the books of halakha that are not able to be brief. You know, Maran wrote a few halakhot on HaShamayim. Why do you have 17 volumes on HaShamayim? Maran, you know how many halakhot are in Shulchan Aruch about Lashon Hara? A handful, maybe. Somehow we have books and books and books and books and books about Lashon Hara. Where did they get all the information from?
So did the Chafetz Chaim's, what, did he write all of that, or did someone comment on
You know, he wrote all of that. The Chafetz Chaim's an interesting situation, his book on the Shulchan. How it's cut on like wildfire, I don't know. Our parents always tells us it's too long of a book to read. He, instead what he did, our parents' role in life is always to make things simple. When I came back to Baltimore and showed Rabbi Tendler my notes for our classes, I said something like, "Oh, what are these? The spark notes of Shulchan Aruch, like Cliff Notes, and that might have been,
Yeah.
you know, like what are these? The cheat sheets?"
Yeah.
And I felt embarrassed. He's like, "How do you think your Rebbe wrote these?" Because he sat down with the books and he opened them and da da da. And he was like, "Give me musar." So I went back to Al Perez. And I said, "Al Perez, you know, I was just in Baltimore. This is what my old rabbi told me." Al Perez said, "Do you know how many hours of my life I wasted in the Beit Midrash? going to pick up books from the shelf and finding the right pages and the right paragraphs, and how difficult it was for me to figure out which sources are important to read and which ones are not important and which ones are saying proper things and those are improper things. He said, I wasted so many precious hours of my life doing those things that I promised my students that I will never make them do those things. That I'm going to give them a set table in front of them that this is everything you need to know. Don't worry, everything else, don't waste your time with.
Which is what Shulchan Aruch means. It's supposed
Correct.
to be.
And I realized then that they're really, it's two different attitudes in Judaism. And obviously being thorough is important, and analysis of sources is important. But at the end of the day, you have a few years to make Talmidei Chachamim. And the first priority to make Talmidei Chachamim is to make sure that they are Talmidei Chachamim, that they know everything they need to know. You want afterwards, you're going to be in the field for 70 years. You can say with all the books you want. But our obligation, we teach Halacha, is to get to the point, to show people not just the answers, but the sources that are relevant. And it's amazing because that's not the way that I was taught previously. I remember there once was a guy who was studying for his chief rabbinate exam. So the chief rabbinate, they make you know all the things you don't need to know. The things you need to know, you probably never studied the chief rabbinate exams. But the things you don't need to know, that's what they study. And our parents saw one of these guys with a Shulchan Aruch. He was learning Shulchan Aruch, the laws of Chuppah and Kiddushin. And our parents said, why are you learning the Shulchan Aruch? You're getting mad at me for learning Shulchan Aruch? What's wrong with learning Shulchan Aruch? Our parents said, I already wrote a book on Chuppah and Kiddushin to save you time. He said, if you're going to sit here with the Shulchan Aruch and starting from scratch, what he told him, Atam mevatel Torah. You are wasting time from studying Torah. That's what he told him. Your study is not study of Torah. He said, but he told him, if you want your ego to be able to say that you open the book on your own and you do it with your ego, I can't cure you of it. He walked away. Now, if someone else might say, well, our parents has an ego, he thinks he wrote the book and now nobody else has to read. It's okay for a Talmid Chacham to be confident in Talmid Chacham. They say a story, I don't know if it's true. I wasn't there, heard a story. Even if it wasn't true, the story could be true. Moshe Feinstein was once on the witness stand in New York court, and they asked him to say who he was, a character witness for somebody, and they asked him to say who he was. It was Moshe Feinstein in general was a very humble person. You can see from the way he writes, he was a very humble person. And he said, "I'm the Gadol Hador. I'm the greatest rabbi of this generation. In America, I'm the great rabbi of this area." And his students were a little embarrassed. Kid, like, that's what you say. He said, "I was under oath. Can't lie when I'm under oath. How can I lie in front of a court when they're asking me to tell the truth?" Meaning, it's okay for a Talmid Chacham to know that Chacham of Yosef was allowed to know that he was the posek of his generation. It's fine. But if he strutted around arrogant all day long, that's what's incorrect. Moshe Rabbeinu writes, "Ish Moshe Anav Mikol Adam." Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble of all men. But he didn't act like that. He knew that. It was cognizant of that. That's the difference between a God's time. It's not a person who doesn't know that he's great. It's one who knows they're great, but they don't use their greatness to put themselves above anybody else. All right, that's what I was saying. Long notes for one paragraph. Bottom of 336. In the middle of the page, you'll see there's an aleph. Yeah, mekom habtziah b'pad. Where do we cut the bread? Haba liftzah at pad. Somebody who comes to cut bread, tzarich liftzah min hamakom shenafa hetev. He has to cut from a place where it has been baked well.
Thickest part.
Oh, that's how, so look on 337.
Actually, the thickest part is the doughiest part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says the where it's cooked the most. So that would be away from the center.
Yeah. It would be the end. Yeah.
I'll save it the end piece.
The heel
There's a superstition that if a man eats the end piece, you're going to forget all your Torah learning. Where on earth did that come from?
I don't get
Another?
Really?
I don't get involved in that.
I didn't know.
Have you heard that too?
V'amakom ha'naifa hetev, in the middle of page 237, the place where the bread was baked well. Hainu ha'makom ha'kasheh shebapad. It's the hardest part of the bread. It means the part where it's hard, it's crispier. V'lo b'makom harach, not the softer place. The Ashkenazim נהגו, they have a custom, לבצוע הפת מהצד העליון והצד התחתון ביחד, to cut from both the top of the bread and the bottom of the bread at the same time. How many Ashkenazim knew that was their custom? Probably nobody. We're going to read why. Okay, let's instead of just reading, we'll understand why. Let's look on top of page 338. ולא יבצע ממקום שנשרפה הפת. You shouldn't eat from the place where the bread has been burned. Why?
Because it doesn't taste
Not
good.
bread. It's
Zohar.
Burnt. It's
And
burnt.
radicals. או ממקום שנדבק בו אפר מן התנור, and you don't want to eat from the part where the ashes of the oven got stuck to the bread. And then he says, "V'chol hanal," and all of this, en lechalek b'nei mapat shlema le'b'nei botzei m'posa shel pat. It doesn't make a difference if you're cutting from a whole loaf of bread or you're cutting from a slice of bread. When you're doing hamutzi, you should eat from the part of the bread that is more well baked, even if it's a slice of bread.
In conjunction with this, on Pesach, each more matzah, it's like one step away from ashes.
That's right. That's
I
right.
know it's a bread of affliction, but
That is the cracker of affliction, and it is not bread.
okay, well, it's saying a mouthful.
Sometimes you want to get like a shalem.
No, what is
Maybe you could use it for,
Chema, what is the shmura matzah that they buy in the store? The shmura matzah there is one step away from being ash. That's what it is. If you leave it in the oven for one more second, it would be gone. Our matzot also, you know how many matzot we get when we make our matzot here in the Kehillat? I have bags and I label them crispy. It's the matzot that were left, either the fire was too hot or they were too long. We also can make crunchy matzot. Everyone can burn bread when you put it in the oven. It doesn't take talent to burn. Every person who's baked a cake has once burnt a cake before. The point is, how do you bake the bread that it still is bread? By the matzot, that art seems to have been lost by certain people. I even heard recently, someone told me that a few years ago, there was a rabbi here from Israel who told them that because you have to eat from a complete matzah, that if the matzah is cracked on the edge, you have to bring a lighter or a blowtorch and to blowtorch the edge of the matzah so it's baked again.
Oh, great.
Can you imagine the obsessive compulsive issues that are going to come out of this?
Yeah.
People are going to walk around with blowtorch lighters in their pockets to fix all the bread they need to eat to make hamutzi on it.
So you should, I mean, how does matzah relate to bread? That's what I want to know.
Matzah is, the matzah that you're referring to as matzah is not matzah.
Shmur matzah
Is
is
not matzah. Crunchy, no. Shmur matzah is not. Crunchy matzah is not matzah.
It's used as matzah, you say it properly.
Because then what else are you going to use? I mean, you can't eat bread.
There's no menu.
But really, matzah is supposed to be like a pita, like a lafa, like a tortilla.
Yeah, but the idea is it'll be yeasted, it'll be...
Oh, Jack, you've been here for so many years. This can't be the first time. There's no problem of anything, you know, rising is not an issue. To be a kosher matzah, it has to be less than the size of your fist. That's the thickness of which a matzah could be.
Your fist and mine.
Let's try.
Okay.
Almost.
They're
See
pretty
that?
much the same size.
No worries.
Yeah. Let's say you want to get technical, 8 centimeters.
Those are fighting words.
There you go.
It's a fakir.
According to the Mishnah talks about what happens on Erev Pesach. When someone's in your house, they're cleaning your house, and they mix around your challah with your matzah in the same bag. And you don't know how to tell which is challah and which is matzah. What do you do?
Sounds like
I'm not answering that question. What do you learn from the Mishnah?
That they look very similar.
There's no way practically to tell the difference. The only difference is one was baked in a certain time frame and one was not. That's the only difference in chametz and matzah. All the stuff about the rising and the ego and that, all that is later. You know, once you threw the arrow, you then painted the bullseye around it. But that's not a Jewish tradition like that.
And then charge 5 times as much.
For real, matzot are tortillas. If we really wanted to, you could even go a lafa, a pita. The Ashkenazim also ate matzot like that. The Rama says that at a certain point, Ashkenazim forgot how to make matzot like that. They didn't know how to do it anymore. Like with the sciatica nerve, the Gida Nashe. Ashkenazim don't know. So Moshe Feinstein says, but if Ashkenazim find a Sephardic shochet who can take out the Gida Nashe for them, so then they can eat the meat, of course. What's the question? It's not a question in halakha. No one's arguing in halakha. What does a matzah look like? The Ashkenazim are simply saying, we don't know how to do this anymore. Fine, so we do. So now learn from us. What's the problem?
Yeah.
I mean, why the insistence? Hari Maran, remember the laws of bread? No, a few chapters ago. Maran says that crackers, rikikim dakim, they're not a hamutzi lechem min haaretz. And the best thing that people do today is they're looking for the thinnest shmura matzah possible. The thinner it is, the less of a chance it is that it's actually a hamutzi.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the crackers, the saltines you eat at home, and the matzah? So why don't you make a hamutzi on your crackers? But on a matzah you make a hamutzi? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
That would
So,
make sense.
what do you do on Pesach?
We bake our own matzah. Thank
You
God
bake
that
your own.
it's 2
Yeah.
years already.
Sure.
Kehillat HaShamayim, we bake 1,000 matzahs.
And the standard is how long you keep it in, not how high it is, how
Correct.
thick it is.
About
Yeah.
bread or matzah?
Yeah, I think it was
But
about
this is
bread.
our matzah.
Okay, so it looks like matzah.
It looks like matzah because it's frozen. When it's soft, you could roll it and make a quesadilla out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
That's
the
one kind,
texture
it's
is
not
different,
the-
but it's still
it's
not
not the
rice,
Taimani.
it's not risen.
No, no.
It isn't thick, it's.
That's right, because we
the
here
texture is-
we here are trying to make tortillas. But if you would go to Baruch's in-laws' house, Baruch, how thick are the matzot by your in-laws?
They're thicker, more like a pita.
Like a pita.
Really?
Yeah.
Like twice as thick as that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Wow.
even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times. Like some
fact,
It
tortillas
looks a
will
little
make-
bit like naan.
It looks like the pita
yeah.
my
Like naan.
mother-in-law makes the
the
rest of the year.
right?
So
It probably
when it
just
comes
doesn't-
Pesach, it looks
Oh,
like
Mark?
almost the same
Does your
thing.
father-in-law put salt in his matzot? Like, do they taste good or they taste like?
You know, I
flour
don't
or
remember. I think I don't think it has much salt.
Like, some Yemenites still put salt in their matzot.
Well, my
Sfadim,
relatives
Ashkenazim,
made tortillas that were like 3 times thicker than that.
Than that.
And
That's
they're
right.
fairly
Those-
thick. Like
Those are like
Lovely.
the
Yeah, it sounds like
Love 'em.
his,
Wow.
yeah.
Raphael, they would call
Wow.
those artisan tortillas. Those are like the homemade tortillas.
Yeah, homemade. Yeah, they would
That's
make
right.
them.
They make them fast in the oven.
And they can make them round, perfectly round. I don't know how
Still
they
make
did it.
tortillas
You
like
make
that.
I make them.
it
They
on
come
a-
out square.
They have a special
Artisan
round
matzah.
metal
Yeah.
thing they make it.
Artisan
Tortillas.
matzah.
Then you had to flip it
No,
around and
but I
then
was
roll it
thinking,
again, and
Yeah.
it
If
came
it's
out
thick,
perfectly
it's
round.
artisan.
Yeah?
It's artisan matzah. That's what I was thinking.
That's a good.
It's-
The rule in halakha of how baked the matzah has to be in the middle is that when you see by our matzot we're super strict about it. I want to make sure that even the Hasidim can have our matzot. That's why I do what I do. But really, as long as when you tear the matzah down the middle, there are no strings of dough that are there, that matzah is considered baked in halakha. So you can have thick bread. Some people bake challah raw, but technically you can have a baguette that's kosher for Pesach. That's not made out of matzah meal. It's made out of flour and water.
Well, I mean, it's,
Except they have to have sour
I
milk
believe
grilled,
you.
I guess.
It's
I know
just
you
that
believe me.
it-
I know, but it's not the reality on the ground.
Right.
That's right.